Well, hello, everybody. Doug and Aleya back with you. And I'm in Los Angeles. Aleya is up at our place in the central Sierra Nevada. And in this session, we thought that we would take up the urge to problem solve. And so let me define the problem, because this will be something that probably resonates with you as you're listening and watching this. How many times have you had somebody in your family or a friend or a coworker, anybody you know, have some sort of issue? Maybe they're emotionally upset, and or maybe there's just something going on in their life. And the first thing you do is offer up advice and try to solve the problem. How many times does that happen to you? And then think about it from the other perspective. How many times when you're upset and maybe you're angry or emotionally upset, and all of a sudden people around you start offering all kinds of advice to you? First of all, what's it feel like when people offer you unsolicited advice? With the kind of phrasing like, well, you know what you should do is, or of course you should do this to fix the problem, or let me help you. I know exactly what to do. Oh, I had that problem too, and this is what I did. How does that feel? Most people report that when they have an emotional issue that they're struggling with and somebody rushes in to try to solve the problem, they don't like it. They feel disrespected. They feel like they're not being listened to. The advice almost is never accurate, and they feel patronized, and they feel like the other person is being condescending. And that is probably the experience that you've had too. And yet, when somebody else is having an upset moment, you will just rush in and problem solve. And this is a form of emotional invalidation. And what's really going on is that if you have a child or a friend who's upset and you're trying to solve that problem, what you're really trying to do is soothe your own anxiety. Because what happens is, if you're not trained to be emotionally self-aware, especially around anxiety, you will become anxious over somebody else's emotions. Especially if you're an empath and you don't recognize, you can't discern whether the emotions are yours or somebody else's. It will cause you anxiety, sometimes intense anxiety. And what you will reflexively and reactively do is try to get rid of that anxiety by telling the other person how to solve their problems so they're no longer upset. And when they're no longer upset, the logic of some part of your brain says, then I won't be anxious. If I can stop you from being upset, I won't feel anxious anymore. So stop being upset and follow my advice so I can feel better. The upshot is that it only makes things worse. Last night I was in a coaching group, and one of the men in the group had put up a post that he's going to post on LinkedIn, and we were sort of critiquing the post, and he wrote about this situation. You're a leader of a group, let's say, and in this case, this leader had a procurement manager who was brilliant at his job, but he was very knowledgeable, but he would save pennies and spend dollars, and so he wasn't always efficient, and he got in everybody's face about it, and his manager told him, "Don't be so prickly," and gave him all kinds of advice about what to do, and the procurement manager kept dismissing it. And it turns out that the procurement manager felt like nobody was listening to him, and he was working as hard as he could for the team, doing what he thought was best, but he felt like he was completely all alone, and only he was saving the company, because everybody would try to solve the problem of his behavior, and nobody took the time to listen to him and really deeply hear him. And as I reflect on that, it's a perfect example of what we're talking about here. The idea that we reactively try to help other people solve their problems without really listening to them, because if we can get them to solve their problems, we no longer, hopefully, feel anxiety. And this is so commonplace. It's everywhere. The secret, and this is a rule from peacemaking, and this is what I teach all of my students. My mantra to my students is de-escalate first, then problem solve. So, and this is applicable in every situation that you can imagine. If you've got an upset friend or spouse or partner, before you try to fix anything, listen to them, affect label them, reflect back their emotions, tell them what they're feeling. I know it sounds weird to do that. If you haven't taken any of our courses on this, it sounds very weird if you've never heard of this before. But brain scanning studies show that when you reflect back people's emotions, amazing things happen in the brain. Primarily, you can calm anybody down in about 90 seconds. We're not going to go into that in this session, but just know that that's the science, and that's why we do what we do. The effect of that is when you get people calmed down and they're no longer experiencing this emotion, now you can sit down and you can bring a whole bunch of different problem-solving tools to bear as appropriate. And most of the time, once a person feels heard and listened to, the problem solves itself. But sometimes you need to engage in some other kind of process, which you can do, and it'll work. If you problem solve first, and don't de-escalate and don't address the emotions, then the problem's never going to get solved. And this is why, for example, supposing you've got a child who is engaging in bad behavior and is upset, emotionally upset, maybe even having a tantrum. If you tell the child to stop the tantrum, not going to work. If you punish the child for having a tantrum, you're not teaching the right thing. You're teaching the child that emotions are bad, which is abusive. Instead, if you take the 30 seconds, just to listen to the child and say, oh, you're really angry, you're really upset, you're really tired, you don't feel heard, you don't feel appreciated, nobody loves you. And the child finally says, yeah, and calms down. Now you're able to do something. You've got a calm child ready to learn and listen. And if you have to apply consequences or discipline, you can do it in a kind and gentle way, and the child will generally accept it. And if you have to problem solve with the child to help the child learn, the child is in a learning mode. Same thing with adults. Supposing you're in a position where you've got to give some sort of, you've got a coworker or a subordinate, and you're coaching, or let's just say you've got to, they're not performing adequately, or there's some performance problem. Rather than criticizing and judging them and telling them what they're doing wrong, and then telling them how to fix the problem, which is what everybody does, the first thing to do is just ask a simple question: what's going on? And listen to them, reflect back their emotions until you finally get them to a place where they're relaxed, and then say, can we talk about how to fix this? Make an invitation. And what you'll find is that you can actually work with these issues or emotions amazingly fast compared to the reactive way that doesn't really help things. So the way to solve the instinct to go to problem solving, reactive problem solving, is to stop and listen for the emotions first. Reflect them back, and then wait and see whether or not problem solving is going to be necessary. And that's probably the simplest, easiest way to do it. And it has huge benefits if you're an empath, because if you take the time to listen to somebody else's emotions and read their emotions, you'll be able to discern the difference between what they're experiencing and what you're experiencing. You can reflect back what they're experiencing, and now you have clarity over their emotional experience, which reduces your anxiety and upset and allows you to not have to jump in and solve the problem, but let them deal with the problem on their own. Aleya, thoughts?
I do have a couple thoughts, and there is a certain level of awareness that we need to have when we're interacting and engaging with people, but one of the things that happens when we're interacting and engaging is we get a surge. It could be a surge of irritation, it could be a surge of I want to help, but you want to start being more aware of the surges within you when you're in the presence of another, especially if you have the desire to immediately go to fixing, problem solving. So you feel the surge come up of like, oh, I want to help them. I know what they could do. And you take a deep breath. And then you ask yourself, if I could help them and fix their problem, how would I then feel? And then there's a moment of self-reflection of, well, I'd feel like they'd value me, or I would feel better about myself, or I would feel like they would respect me and they would be really appreciative of me. So what you're doing is you're feeling into, if you were to solve their problem, what is the need that you would get from truly helping them? And we haven't even opened our mouths yet. We're just still in the inhale of like, I want to help them. If I could help them, what would I get out of it? And so you're becoming more aware of your own needs and how, as an empath, you might be giving responsibility for your needs to this person and having your needs contingent on your needs getting met, contingent on your ability to fix the problem for them. But that just then puts you into this very empathic mess. And so when you're aware of the needs that you've just given away, you take another breath and you say to yourself, you know what, fixing their problem doesn't need to meet my needs. I can meet my needs deep in my core. And I talk about that in my Empowered Empath course. And also we talk about it in the Emotional Competency course. And so you're retrieving this responsibility for this need deep within. And then you say to yourself, well, maybe all I need to do is just hold a space for them to be in their process, to talk, and validate their experience, validate their emotions with the you statements of you're really feeling frustrated and you don't know what to do. And then you could go into a line of inquiry if that's appropriate. So that's a process that you can start becoming more aware of and practicing when you're in the presence of another and you feel the surge of the wanting to fix. Then when you're in a different situation and somebody is listening to you and you're talking about a situation and they start to fix, you might even want to back up 10 steps and say, hey, friend, I have a situation that is coming up and I just need a space to process out loud. Right now I'm not ready for the fix. I'm not ready for the solution. But would you be willing to just hold a space for me or do it in whatever words feel authentic to you? Would you be willing to hold a container, a space, and just listen? Just let me process out loud. And maybe even just like name emotions that you might sense that I'm feeling, because they might not know how to affect label, validate your emotions. So you're asking for your needs before you get yourself into a situation where somebody is going to naturally want to fix, because that's what we do in this culture. So ask for the needs, set it up beforehand, but often, even when we set it up and we've asked for our needs of like, hey, I just need a process out loud, I'm not ready for a solution yet, they might still try to jump in on the fix. And you'd say, wow, those are some really great ideas. And my brain, my being, still not ready for the fix. I just need to process. And would you be able to hold the space, like gentle reminder? Or you might have discernment of this person really doesn't have the capacity to hold the space for you to process. They're going to keep trying to fix the needs to feel better about themselves or be appreciated or be valued or be respected or be loved or experience connection. They don't have the bandwidth to just hold a space for you to process. So you're just going to get the fix when you talk about something. So discernment for you to avoid situations that would cause disappointment, and asking for your needs, and then also meeting your needs deep in your core. And then it breaks the pattern of trying to fix when you're in the presence of another. Those are the thoughts that come when I think about the fixing. Any other pieces, Doug, before we complete?
No, I would just say that I think your points are really, really excellent. This is a common problem, and it can lead to resentment and anger because people just they want to be heard. They don't want to have their problems solved.
Yeah, and shame and
just
betrayal.
Be aware of your own anxiety.
Yeah,
that's right. So be aware of your own anxiety around other people's emotions and the issues they're having, and see if you can recognize that your urge to problem solve is really a selfish urge to manage and soothe your own anxiety. And once you see that, then your solution is to resist the urge, manage your anxiety by labeling the emotions, oh, you're really angry, you're really frustrated, of the other person, so that they can calm down. And as they calm down, your anxiety will go away. That's really the solution.